Eric, Carter takes us in a direction that, for as much Ohio State football as we talk about on this particular show and throughout this channel, we don't go the special teams route too often, unless maybe somebody misses a big kick. I don't know when that's ever happened, but Parker Fleming, um, special teams coordinator. What do we think about the special teams? And certainly the faces on special teams change year to year considerably, going past the specialists, of course. So thoughts about the special teams performance in recent years?
Tony?
Well, I think I think I said this on our Friday live show that we did. The special teams performance this year shows that you need to have a full-time special teams coordinator. Unfortunately, it was the performance of the full-time special teams coordinator that shows you that you need somebody that can actually do this in a more coordinated effort. And there were so many mistakes and so many issues with the special teams that you could have a full-time person do that, and maybe it would be better. But having Parker Fleming doing it, it was not good. I don't know what his job performance review is going to look like. It can't be satisfactory because there are too many simple mistakes and mistakes that a head coach shouldn't have to catch or somebody else shouldn't have to catch. These are mistakes that, it just in terms of making sure that everybody is aware that, hey, this is a fake punt. Hello, everybody, be aware, including the snapper. This is a fake punt. Let's all, fake punt on 3, ready break, that sort of thing. And that communication isn't there. And that's not acceptable. And I'm not one of these people who thinks you can't have a full-time special teams coordinator. It's not as a few years ago, it wasn't as rare as Ohio State fans wanted it to make it out to be. I haven't checked lately to see if it's gotten rarer, but I'm okay with having a full-time special teams guy as long as the special teams are an asset and are really, really good. For a lot of the time this year, Ohio State special teams are always pretty good. But even the start of the season, when you had Taraja Mitchell getting a penalty, trying to jump over the snapper, jumping over the line, that is a rule in place that you can't do. And yet one of your senior leaders is doing it. So where is the special teams coordination from game one to the very final game where you have too many guys on the field for a fake punt that never happens? The game before that, fake punt that never happens. So I think if you're going to have a full-time guy, be better at it. Also, it really, really helps if that guy can recruit, because if you have Parker Fleming as one of your 10 assistants, that means James Laurinaitis has to recruit from home. And you can do that, but you can't do it as well as you can on the road.
Yeah, let me try and be delicate here, because I'm not one to sit there and try and put somebody specifically on blast, but I've never been in favor of a special teams coordinator. And after last year, I'm even less in favor of it. Special teams are important, obviously. I mean, there are a lot of things that have to happen there, but so is timeout management. So is the get back coach and a lot of other things there. I mean, I think that you could probably have somebody who does a little bit of all of that type of stuff. We don't see kick returns anymore. So take something right off the table. Kick return, not really part of Ohio State's game all that much, unless teams sit there and say, well, we're going to kick it to the 5 and really kind of force you to make a decision at that point. We haven't, we're not even seeing Ohio State trying to kick it into the corner anymore because they were kicking it out of bounds too many times. So I just think that there's not I don't know if the squeeze or if the juice is worth the squeeze for having a special teams coordinator at this point. I think that Ohio State probably could. I mean, if we're at a point where we get the NC2A rule that allows more coaches with whatever that may look like, whether or not they lift the number or they make it unlimited. And Alabama has 74 coaches, and Ohio State has 40, and Purdue still has 10. I don't know what the case is, but I just think that right now we're not seeing enough out of that position because it's not a recruiting position. I mean, yes, Ohio State is fine. Ohio State's gone out in the portal and gotten a long snapper. Ohio State has plenty of people who are capable of foot meeting leather, but it's Ohio State needs to be out there being able to do more on the recruiting trail, and we certainly have seen some bad gaffes from special teams at some of the most critical moments this year. And as Tony reminded me, the Taraja Mitchell trying to leap over the wall thing was just, that and leaping on trying to block an extra point. If you do that, that player probably should be running from now until the end of time, because that is just inexcusable. And the coach should be out there running with them, because that is just inexcusable.
Well, I think it's a matter of comfortability for Ryan Day, and I think this is how he prefers to handle it. There are a lot of special teams plays in the course of a given game. I thought the punting game on the whole was pretty good. Kickoffs pretty good. Field goals. I mean, they missed the field goal to go to the national championship game, but otherwise he was pretty good. There were a couple mistakes in there, but I don't know where you pin the blame. Ultimately, it comes back to the special teams coordinator, I guess. But I didn't feel that their special teams were all that bad. I'd say Chip Trianum trying to return kicks as opposed to Xavier Johnson trying to return kicks was a mistake. Xavier Johnson should have been doing it from day one, because, he had that big one against Maryland. I don't have a big qualm with it. I guess get through this season and see what it looks like. I don't think Ryan Day wanted to admit failure after 1 year and pull the plug on Parker Fleming. I think he wanted to give him 2 years to see, how this is going to work out. I'd say it was probably a C+, B-, as you guys, or a B maybe for the first year, and got to be better in 2023, because you can win important games and lose important games on the basis of special teams. And, that's definitely the case. So I want to see how they respond and how they do this coming year.
Hell, give them 10 years. I mean, why not? I mean, I get what you're saying, and I don't disagree on the surface, but you have such a finite amount of coaches that can get out there and do things. And again, I'm not trying to run people. That's not what I'm about. But you sit there, go to the last 2 games, the 2 losses. Ohio State, has a fake punt that is absolutely going to work against Michigan, and it is not executed properly. Now, you could sit there and say, well, Parker Fleming, was he the one who drew it all up and had all that? But, if your rank and file are not, prepared and not getting things done. And yes, obviously the injury to Bradley Robinson didn't help the situation either. I mean, there were a lot of things there. And then you look at what happened against Georgia, and I don't know. I just really feel like you're sacrificing potential results for the sake of comfortability. And that's just a load of hooey to me.
Yeah, I would go with that. I think it's a push-pull, though, because, I think back to the old days when they didn't have the special teams coordinator. So now Kerry Combs is running punt coverage, and Tony Alford is running kick return, and the wide receivers coach is running punt return. And does it take time away from them coaching the players at their position, game planning, et cetera, for offense and defensive responsibilities to devote to special teams? And I'm sure they're still involved as secondary coaches, not secondaries and defensive backs, but secondarily to Parker Fleming in each of those disciplines. But because you've got to have your best people on it. But I guess it's just 2 different ways to look at it. I think it's just
a special teams analyst instead of a coach. Can you have it as an analyst? I mean, I know that there's certain limits of what you can do as an analyst in terms of quote unquote on-field game time coaching, but a lot of that, I mean, the things that you mentioned there, that's Monday through Thursday. That's Monday through Thursday type of things. And then, it's just getting things called off of a play sheet on Saturday. So, again, I don't know. All of this is above my pay grade. I just know in the umpteen million years I've been watching football, I just think that it's putting gas in a car that's already up on blocks. I don't think that there's a reason to have a special teams coordinator. I think it's a waste.
Well, and now having Brian Hartline as the offensive coordinator, how much is that taking away from him being the receivers coach? I mean, that's a bigger responsibility than having the running backs coach handle kickoffs and the defensive backs coach handling punts. I will say, Parker, he's been the coordinator, full-time coordinator for 2 years now. Before that, he was quality control for 3 years on special teams. So, like, he's had his hand in this for a long time, and he's had some good things. I think the pop-up onside kick against Maryland, that was Parker Fleming, that Chris Olave runs under. And he's had other things, he finds these tendencies, and he does well at that. There's just been he's fallen short in some of the in-game activity. The pregame stuff, I think he does really well. It's that in-game, and I do wonder if Ryan Day is taking a step back from play calling. I think he'll have more of his hands in special teams, as Urban Meyer used to. And at some point, if Ryan Day is no longer calling plays and is more involved in special teams, does that then lead to Parker Fleming getting busted back down to quality control so that they can promote James Laurinaitis? And you can still have Parker doing everything. I don't know that he has the same ability to control things during the game. And at this point, I don't know if that's a bad thing.
Obviously, we all have strong opinions here on this one because I think it has been a source of frustration, and we all have years in covering this team and covering this sport, and just I don't know. I mean, yeah, you blow a special teams play, and it can be. I mean, in a tough game, and it can be critical at this point. But I don't know. I just think that with the limitations that you have, it just really seems like you're putting too much in something that doesn't need it doesn't need that amount of resources in terms of one of your counters of coaches who can go out and recruit. And with Jim Knowles not necessarily being the strongest recruiter out there, and I'm not breaking any news, that's just not necessarily his thing. You've already got one guy right there that's kind of in terms of that. Larry Johnson's getting up there in years. I mean, he's still considered the GOAT. I mean, players love everything. You need to have some young, dynamic recruiters out there. Parker Fleming's young. I just don't know how dynamic he is in terms of recruiting and how he can just sit there and necessarily go into any position's room of the room of any player of any position and be like, let me tell you, I see you being great in trying to, in our punt block scheme. I don't feel it.
Ironically, USC had the same issues down the stretch of the season with special teams gaps. The most famous one that they had a punt returner, kickoff returner in the game that shouldn't have been. It was Mario Williams, who's the star, but had not filled the role the entire season. But for some reason, he was back there in the Cotton Bowl against Tulane. The fumble out of bounds when he shouldn't have been fielding the ball at the half-yard line led to the safety that lost the game, basically, against Tulane in the Cotton Bowl. And USC fans are clamoring for a special teams coach. USC does not have one. And Lincoln Riley has confirmed that he will not be hiring a designated special teams coach.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about a reaction to what you have, and what you have is wrong if it goes wrong. And it doesn't matter whether it's actually right, and it's been right all along. It's just it's the reaction to the opposite, and wanting to go swing one way after you've been this way, and then one thing goes wrong and you have to react to it. I think consistency is better than reactionary in many cases, and maybe even in this one. Certainly not in the Iowa one that you let off the show with. Reactionary would be much better than just staying consistent there. But like I said, I don't have an issue with it. Once they upped it to 10, a lot of places went this route. But it has to continue to pay dividends. And again, if it's not a recruiting position, a lot of people use that. They've got the tight end / special teams coach is one of the things, and that guy, whether it's like a Tim Brewster or whoever, is also kind of a decent recruiter. But if you're not getting that, and now I will say he also helps out on defense. That's one of the things that Parker Fleming also does. He helps with the defensive backs, so he's not just doing special teams all the time. He's also doing defense in practice and things like that. So they're getting that out of him as well.
So that was 3 defensive coaches for what we saw out of the secondary last year, is what you're saying.
That's
I already knew that, but I mean, just for the benefit of the audience, that was the work of 3 coaches.